Saw 3D, the final chapter. No, it is not. What's with like this new metal Megazord Jigsaw? I wish this happened in the movie. You just love when the films don't have numbers in them, even though they're sequels. It's just like the Rocky franchise. For some reason, they all started with Roman numerals, no subtitles or anything. And then for some reason, the supposed final one, they screwed it all up. Saw 6 had the lowest returns of the franchise so far. And they were planning to do 2 more, but they decided to merge the 2 films. We open with Dr. Gordon from the first film actually escaping and then cauterizing his leg on a steam pipe. Well, that was interesting. Then we cut to a different movie, and then we remember it's a Saw film. This trap is out in public where everyone can see. This guy's named Brad, and this guy's name is Ryan. Animatronic Billy rolls up and says the girl hanging above them cheated on both of them and used them, so they can fight for the death to see who is actually better, or just throw their hands in the air and just cut her.
I think we're breaking up with you, Tina!
So they inevitably just give up and cut her. I hate this opening trap. A lot. It's out in the public for no reason for everyone to watch instead of in a warehouse like every other trap. The entire Saw franchise has been disregarded as just torture porn for people who haven't actually seen it. And this trap is the only time I ever thought this is actually torture porn. Because we have the girl up there, and she's got the strap in between her boobs. And why are the guys making the decision? In any other Saw film, it would be her having to choose either or who would die. And the worst part of it, despite the trap being outdoors and everyone can watch it, this never gets brought up again. So why would Kaufman probably build this? Then we get a recap of the last film with Kaufman getting electrocuted and bear trapped by Jill. But Jill actually witnesses Kaufman survive. She runs off as Kaufman goes to the Billy warehouse and gets stitched up. Meanwhile, in interrogations, we meet Gibson, played by that one guy from Final Destination, and Jill spills the beans about Kaufman to this annoying guy. Meanwhile, Kaufman's burning all of his IDs. Why those specifically and not the warehouse, I don't know. Then we cut to a new guy, Bobby, not Billy, who wrote a self-help book about how he survived a jigsaw trap, and he's going on air to talk about it. And ooh, he forgot to kiss his wife. Meanwhile, Jill got pig-masked, and then she got stripped down to a nightie, and Kaufman shoots at her, which makes her turn into a terrible dummy and comedically bounce around. But then plot twist, it was all just a dream. Absolute cop-out that has never been done in a Saw film before. What the hell? And oddly sexual because she was like in a nightie and all tied up and Kaufman shot a thing at her. Meanwhile, a bunch of skinheads were put into a Saw trap. One of them is played by the late great Chester Bennington, the lead singer of Linkin Park. No, Chester is not an actual racist in real life, as far as I know and hope. This is a big Rube Goldberg game. Chester is stuck in a car. If he doesn't pull a lever, it will fall onto his girlfriend and accelerate forward, ripping the arms and mouth off of one guy and then crashing into another guy and send him flying. And again, he only has to pull a lever in 30 seconds. Oh, it's really hot and his skin's sticking to the seat, so he doesn't get it in time. At the crime scene, Gibson finds a thing, which is the reverse bear trap from the last movie that was on Kaufman, but it's covered in all of Jill's fingerprints. He brings Jill to a warehouse and calls her crazy a lot. And the safe house was completely worthless because Kaufman immediately finds them and sends them a terrorist tape saying that he wants Jill and also he's starting explosions. So they put Jill in a cell. Meanwhile, Bobby's having an intervention with a bunch of trap survivors. We actually see a couple from the past films, like Malik from Saw 5, some of the survivors from Saw 6, including one arm over here, Brad and Ryan from the beginning of the film. And this lady who was talking about her and her abusive ex were playing the floor as green screen lawnmowers, and he lost. Also, they're being filmed. One arm says this is stupid and she didn't learn anything, and Bobby talks about how he used his pecs to lift himself up to safety. And he actually remembers to kiss his wife on camera for sympathy. But then from the shadows, someone's clapping, and it's Dr. Gordon. Bobby's friend thinks he's weird, but Bobby thinks he's fine. And then he gets kidnapped. Bobby wakes up in a lobster cage, and Billy says that he's a liar, liar, pants on fire.
You are a liar. You and I both know you have never been in a trap. nor have you ever been tested.
So yeah, Bobby made the whole thing up, just inspired by a news report. Jigsaw, coming back from the Sox game, says he shouldn't do stuff like that. So Bobby has to go through the obstacle course to save his wife. Or she will die, not him for some reason. Also, it's kind of weird to hear Jigsaw call it a trap. Then the lobster cage gets zoomed up, and he gets dangled over a pit of really spaced out knives. They could have probably just dropped easily and not stabbed himself, but he still swings around and escapes. The first trial, he finds his publicist in a thing. He's got to fish out the key from in her, or the thing's gonna stab her in the neck. This is just nasty, man. And he also can't make too much noise. He gets the key, but last second.
You just needed to shut up!
Well, you try being quiet with a fishing lure going for your guts, dick. Then he finds his lawyer strapped to a thing, and then for some reason, Billy just crashes through a window in a lobster cage like the Kool-Aid Man, and explains that his lawyer is going to get stabbed in the eyes and the mouth unless he does some sits, man. He's got a lift, bro, and also gets stabbed in the ribs. But he fails, and he gets 3D stabbed in the face. Then next up, he's got to help navigate his blind friend across the floor on only a few planks, or else he'll hang himself. And he's got a time limit. They meet halfway, and then for some reason, Bobby thinks it's a good idea to toss a key at the blind man. And no surprise, he fucking drops it. Meanwhile, the cops find another DVD from Kaufman.
Look beyond the crossroad to the clear dawn.
Which causes Gibson to have a flashback about how at a place called the Crossroad, he was jumped by a homeless man who stole his gun, but then he was saved by Kaufman, who then immediately committed police brutality by shooting the homeless man even after he dropped his gun, because we gotta show Kaufman's evil. So the SWAT team enters the room. We go through the traps, but then they find a thing, that the tape was actually sent from the junkyard. Gibson has to turn around and go over there, and he finds a secret door and a secret lair. He thinks he finds Kaufman, but it was one of the bodies from earlier. Kaufman was watching the trap and somehow had time to switch out bodies, so he's actually at the morgue. And he stabs the morgue guy, who we actually have saw for the last couple films. He also somehow had time to set up this. Where the fuck did he get a machine gun? The SWAT team also sets off a thing which just poisons them, so that was pointless. Then Kaufman just becomes Michael Myers and stealth kills everyone. He gets to Jill, but she stabs him in the neck. And then it straight up becomes a slasher film, with Jill running and hiding and Kaufman stumbling slowly to her. The scene's edited really weird. It's like they couldn't get both actors at the same time for filming and got stand in for a fall. Back in the trap, he's got to rip out his teeth because they have the codes to the door on them. This is also just nasty. He finds his wife, and Billy says for his last test, he's got to do what he said he did, stab himself in the pecs and use them to climb up, to plug in a hot wire. He probably could have just Tarzan up there without stabbing himself, but whatever. But his wife finds out that he was a liar. He somehow makes it up to the wire, but then for dramatic irony, they tear just as he's about to plug the things in. And then an oven literally transforms around his wife and burns her alive, even though she was completely innocent in all of this, and if this was any other Saw movie, he would be the one who gets furnace. Meanwhile, Kaufman, after smacking Jill around a little, instead of using the new unreliable model, he uses the classic reverse bear trap. And we actually do see it in action, which is kind of cool and really nasty. He decides to cover his tracks and lights up the warehouse and literally walks away from an explosion like an action movie. But he gets jumped by the 3 little pigs, and one of them is Dr. Gordon. And big plot twist, that letter Jill dropped off in the last movie was for him, and had a tape from Jigsaw saying that he was the best of them all, revealing that Jigsaw actually saved him and nursed him back to health when he was escaping in the first film, revealing that yes, Gordon was the guy who installed the key into the guy's eye in Saw 2. He's the one who recommended Lynn for the surgery and knew that she was Jeff's wife in 3. He's the one who sewed up eyes and mouths in Saw 4. And he was the one who wrote the I know who you are note instead of Strom in Saw 5. It's never actually revealed who the other 2 pigmasks are in the film, but in the commentary it's said to be Brad and Ryan from the beginning of the film. And speaking about beginnings, we go back to where it all started, within the bathroom. We even see the now skeletal other guys down there. Kaufman goes for the saw, but Gordon picks it up before he can get it. He remembers him cutting off his own foot, and 3Ds it at the camera out of the room. Gordon makes a final farewell to his old foot and his old wallet, and leaves Kaufman much like the first film.
No! You can't fucking do this to me! Fuck you! No!
Game over.
No!
Final body count? 27. This is the worst Saw movie. The only positive is the ending with Gordon, which actually does make a lot of sense. It actually was kind of built up ever since Saw 2, making it technically a better reveal than even Kaufman was. And I like the symmetry of ending the series like how it began, in the bathroom. But the rest of the film feels incredibly rushed, like we have to get to every plot point as quick as possible. I really hate seeing Kaufman just become a generic slasher film villain. The traps are not that interesting, and most of them are kind of sexist, with the women in peril and with no way to escape. And it feels like the traps didn't really teach anyone anything. All the new characters are annoying. Gibson definitely feels like a character that was set up to be in a second film, but because the last film didn't do so well, they just killed him off and did all the backstory stuff in this film. Overall, this is definitely the low point of the franchise. Other than an actually good ending, the rest of the film just feels like Saw going through the motions and slowly just giving up. Out of 10, 2.